My name is Melanie Gertis. I'm the licensed counselor for Victoria College, and we have Samuel with us from Midcoast Family Services, and he's going to be doing the presentation today. Oh, you're muted.
Dang it, I knew that was going to happen. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Really excited to get this presentation going. Like Ms. Curtis said, my name is Samuel Villa, and I'm with Midcoast Family Services. I am a prevention specialist from Midcoast Family Services, and in a little bit, we're going to discuss what exactly that means. Before I get started with my presentation, I just wanted to let y'all know that if you have any questions, any comments that you have, feel free to either just put them on the chat, or if you would just like to, I don't know how this service does it, but I know in Zoom there's such a thing as raising your hand. Just feel free. I'd like to have a discussion rather than have me presenting the entire time. But if you feel more comfortable just uh, putting it on the chat, or after I'm done, I'll go ahead and ask for questions and comments if you want to wait till the end. All right. So again, I'm with Midcoast Family Services. And for those of y'all who aren't familiar with Midcoast Family Services, we are a nonprofit agency here in Victoria, but we do serve outlying counties as well. Our mission at Midcoast is to empower children, individuals, and families to live free from family violence, homelessness, sexual assault, and substance abuse. And the services that we provide at Midcoast Family Services, we have a women's crisis center, which houses women that are experiencing violence at the home or any kind of abuse at the home. One of the neat things that I appreciate about our Women's Crisis Center is that they do accept pets. And so if a lot of times when there's abuse happening at home, a lot of times they don't want to leave the pet behind. But the Women's Crisis Center here in Victoria, they do accept pets. We also have the Family Violence Prevention Department, where there's classes that teaches anger management and conflict resolution. The sexual assault services that we provide, we have a number of counselors that work with victims in this area. We also have housing and rental assistance, which is the homeless department, where if you're in danger of being evicted or you have been evicted from your home, we do assist in housing and rental assistance. I do believe the only qualification is that you have received an official letter stating that you're going to be evicted from your apartment or home. Um, and also with the homeless population that you may see around town, where people are living literally on the streets. We do serve temporary housing for those individuals. And for many of those who do not know, um, if you're living with another person, if you and your family are living with a relative or a friend, that is considered homeless as well. And so in those situations, the homeless department does help out with finding temporary housing that can ultimately lead to permanent housing. One of the things that I didn't write on our services that we do have two um, thrift stores in town. One on Sam Houston, and the other downtown on not Lone Tree, right the street right before Main Street. Uh, we do have two uh, thrift stores, and the monies that are raised from those thrift stores go directly to the women's shelter. It doesn't go to outlying agencies. It goes directly to us, and it helps provide with the Women's Crisis Center. And lastly is the youth department, which is the department that I currently work in. There's, I want to say, 12 prevention specialists that I work with. And even though our department is the youth department, where we service kinder all the way to senior year in high school. We do a lot of community outreach, which is what I'm doing today. I am, doing community research for VC. We also work with UHV, and so even though our department is the youth department, we do work in the community, and this is just an example of how our arm extends farther than just working in the schools. Okay. And the topic that we're going to be discussing today is tobacco in vaping. Before I do anything else, I want to just let you know that this is not an indictment for any of you who do smoke or vape. Our objective is to educate and inform, not to lecture and influence. But if through our presentations, especially if this presentation today, through this presentation, if you do feel influenced to quit, or if you today would be beneficial to a family member or a friend, that could lead them to quit smoking or vaping, that's just a bonus on our end. Again, it's not an indictment. Nobody's here to lecture you. I'm just giving you information. So hopefully if you decide to use it, great. And if not, that's great too. Okay. So first, before we talk about actual vaping and all the facts about it, I'm going to give you a real brief history lesson here. This gentleman's name is Han Link. He's a pharmacist from China, and he is the inventor of the e-cigarette. How this came about was his father actually passed away from lung cancer through many years of smoking. And obviously, this was very devastating to him. In addition to being a pharmacist, he's also an engineer. So he used his engineering and pharmacy background to develop what's today called an e-cigarette. He developed a program to where people in China were able to still get the feel of holding a cigarette, tasting a cigarette, without the large amounts of nicotine that are found in cigarettes. His intentions were good. His intentions were to prevent illnesses, death from people who do smoke, who do develop lung cancer or any kind of cancer. But then tobacco companies caught wind of this, and they decided to buy him out. Now that's a big red flag right there. A tobacco company buying a device that prevents you from smoking is kind of like Hershey making a chocolate to prevent you from liking chocolate. So that was a big red flag right there. So what the tobacco companies did, they developed their version of the e-cigarette, and at first their claim to fame and their pitch was, this is designed to prevent people from being addicted to smoking. And because there were no FDA regulations, they could say that, and they were able to use any kind of chemicals, any kind of ingredients to pass that along, because it's odorless, so you really couldn't smell the same way that you would smell an actual cigarette. And so this is the very preliminary picture of an e-cigarette. And I know now there's Joules, there's pods, there's vape pens, but all of that they're still called e-cigarettes. It's just different brands and different variations of it. But basically it works like this. A battery will heat up a coil, and that coil will turn the juice that's in the cartridge or in the pod into into a gas. And so one of the first pitches that e-cigarette companies had was that it's not smoke, it's vapor. However, that's a misnomer because anything that any liquid that heats up is actually an aerosol. It's not so much a vapor. And so the battery heats up the coil, coil heats up the liquid, liquid turns into the gas, you inhale it, and then it comes out as a aerosol. And these are different nations, different kinds of vape pens. And Colin, yes, it still would hurt the lungs. And now we know this. And now with a lot of research, it's been shown that yes, it does harm the lungs. Now we have to be very careful in how we present this information because a while back the Just Say No campaign or anyone that was anti-tobacco, the message was cigarettes cause cancer. That was the pitch to it. However, we have to be careful with what we say because obviously there are smokers around that have been smoking for years and never developed cancer. So now the verbiage is smoking has risk factors that could cause cancer. Um, but just because it doesn't cause cancer doesn't mean that it can't affect the lungs. So that was a very good question, Colin. Yes, it still can hurt the lungs. And this is just some examples of the different types of e-cigarettes. They have a ciga-like, which is pretty much a plastic cigarette, different variations such as e-hookahs, rechargeables, vape pens. Mods have become very popular recently, mainly because they are more potent when it comes to the amount of nicotine. And then the pod-based e-cigarette, which look like flash drives. And as we go along in the presentation, um, we're going to discuss how dangerous it is when it can be manipulated and to look like something it's not when it comes to the younger generation that are using vape pens. And some of these actually look like pens and regular cigarettes. Um, Disposables, it's use them one time, and then you would have to buy more. Ciga-likes, they look like cigarettes, they're replaceable, and there's just certain cartridges that you can alternate between whenever you're done with them, and then you just buy more. Vape pens look like pens. They can be refilled with e-juice, or they just call them juice. Um, in advanced tank systems, which I think the people that are really trying to quit smoking, if their intention is to quit smoking, uh, use these because they don't feel like you're holding a cigarette. They're trying to break away from that habit of holding an actual cigarette. And like I mentioned before, there's hookahs, which are, I don't know if they're popular down here. I know up north, hookah lounges are very popular. Um, I don't even think there's a hookah lounge here in Victoria. I know in San Antonio there's some. Um, and then we have heated tobacco products, where basically you're using a high temperature to create an aerosol with the juice and cannabis vaporizers, where people are now using cannabis as opposed to tobacco. And I know this presentation isn't about cannabis or marijuana, um, but I just wanted to touch on that as well. Is that it's just another way for people who are addicted to marijuana or use marijuana to help cope with anything, that it's very easy to, for example, sneak in a vape pen uh, using nicotine, but students are also using cannabis vaporizers to take to school. Um, and just to go off on a little tangent, uh, when I do this presentation to, usually I do this presentation to junior high or high school students, um, and we do talk about the fact that students are bringing cannabis in their backpacks, in their pockets, because it's a literally looks like a flash drive, and so it's very easy to conceal. Now, what's happening is, as recently as last year, before we went on lockdown because of COVID, the last presentation I did was in an elementary school, because that principal was having an issue of fourth and fifth graders bringing vapes to school and smoking marijuana. And so that this is why that it's important that we adults listen to this kind of presentation, because the not only are teenagers vaping uh, cigarettes and using tobacco products, but they're also vaping by using cannabis, and that's just something, especially when we're dealing with elementary age kids, that we really need to look out for. Okay, like I mentioned before, the advertisements that vape pens and e-cigarettes were spouting out to the public was that it's harmless because it's a vapor. It does not cause secondhand smoke. Um, and on Monday, I sat in on a webinar from the CDC in discussing the relationships between vaping and COVID. And one of the things they talk about was through secondhand smoke, that even though there's not a lot of research that secondhand smoke is related to COVID, but they did not rule completely 100% rule that out. So I found that it was very interesting that there's still some kind of relationships between vaping and COVID, and even though it's not, you can't smell it, or it doesn't get on your clothes, it could still be dangerous when you inhale it. Um, and the flavoring, when it comes to advertising to the younger generation, flavoring was a real big component of that. But there's chemicals like I knew I was going to mispronounce this, diacetyl, which can damage the lungs when inhaled. There's different particles that are in the juice when it turns into an aerosol. When it's inhaled, it could not only hurt your lungs but also hurt your heart. And different kinds of metals such as lead, chromium, nickel, copper, aluminum, and mercury um, can also cause brain damage. That's one thing that I found interesting doing my research for this, because we all know that we all remember being in elementary school and middle school and hearing, people like me coming into your schools uh, and say smoking's bad, don't do it. And we always hear about the lungs, but really the chemicals that are in vape pens and in the cartridges with the juice have different metals in there, and it could ultimately lead in brain injury. And that's one thing that not a lot of people discuss. Now, we're going to pick on the Joule company for a little bit. I feel like the Joule company is very complicit when it comes to the younger generation vaping. Uh, and Joule is actually used as a noun when it comes to talking about what you're using, rather than saying my e-cigarette or my vape pen. They say this is my Joule, but the Joule isn't a type of cigarette; it's the brand of cigarette. And the reason we're picking on them is because they're one of the most complicit companies when it comes to targeting the younger generation. And the fact that they have been investigated by the Federal Trade Commission, they've been investigated by the FBI about their practices. about their advertising practices. Uh, as you can see, they're very sleek. They look very modern, easy to hide in the palm of your hand, easy to put in your pocket, put in your backpack, and just the model of it. You're just waiting for it to be concealed. Now, why would you want to conceal something that is legal, that is supposedly good for you? It's easily concealed because they understand and they know that today's teenager is going to be tomorrow's purchaser. And so when these teenagers who become hooked on vaping, they know once they get old enough, they're going to be the actual person buying these, and so they're creating a precedent to raise their ultimate bottom line. Okay, as recently as this week, the Federal Trade Commission asked Joule to turn over sales and advertising data. Katie Tsai, which is the author of the article, says the e-cigarette maker Joule has previously been under the spotlight for its marketing practices, especially towards youth. In 2019, Joule announced it would cease all product advertising in broadcast, print, and digital channels in the US. Now, this is interesting because in 2017, they announced basically the same thing. So in 2 years, they didn't follow up on what they said they were going to do. And so when you look at the Joule company, they do a lot of face value things. They'll come out on TV and say vaping is just for adults. Kids should not be vaping. There was a CBS This Morning, which is a weekly program that comes on CBS, where the CEO toured their facility with the reporter from CBS This Morning. Made a very strong case that vaping is just for adults. If you don't smoke, then you shouldn't vape. Vaping is specifically for those trying to quit, those individuals trying to quit smoking. Okay, but then they put out these kind of advertisements. These kind of advertisements are plainly geared towards young people. They're colorful. The people that are in the advertisements are young, are stylish. They have clothes that the kids are wearing. They're using poses that the kids are posing in. They're grouped together. And so this is plainly advertising for teenagers, for young people. But like I said, they can go on TV and say, well, this is not meant for kids on CBS This Morning. CBS This Morning is a program who comes on at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday mornings. I don't know any teenager, I don't know any young person who wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch CBS This Morning. So they're smart, they know what they're doing, and I'm glad that the FTC is coming down on them because still their products are being geared towards teenagers. And all you have to do is just look at the data. From 2017 to 2018, there's been a 78% increase among high school students that were not smoking at all and now are now vaping. So not only are the advertisements very troubling, but you have to ask yourself, why are youth vaping? Why are kids wanting to buy these zip drives, these flash drives, these bulky pins? Why would they do that? Well, these are not my words, but it's a healthy alternative to smoking. While yes, in some situations, they're all it is a safer alternative to smoking because the amount of secondhand smoke may not be that vast. However, it's like substituting Diet Coke from regular Coke. While it may be better, nobody's ever lost 100 pounds just by drinking Diet Coke. It's still pretty bad for you. They like to do tricks. When I go to my junior highs, they show me YouTube videos of somebody doing tricks with the smoke coming out of their mouth. And those uh, who are trying to quit, they're falling into that trap of using vaping as a ways to quit smoking. Um, and just like everything else, they do it because their friends are doing it. They want to be cool. In some situations, they feel that vaping reduces their stress. Um, and sometimes they don't care. They just want to do it for fun. And most students, especially some of the students that I work with, if you tell them not to do something, well, then that's the first thing they're going to want to do. And for them, it's fun, it's recreational. And because of the flavorings, it tastes good. I want to say last February, um, the FDA made it where the only flavorings that uh, vaping companies could put out were, I think, just mint and menthol. But through some kind of loophole, there are some companies that are, still putting out, the cotton candy flavor, the Jolly Rancher flavor. And through my own investigations, just, just as a personal aside, I don't vape, but sometimes I do go to the vape shops here in town just to see, what they're selling and see uh, how they would react if I asked a certain question. And uh, about a week ago, I went in and asked, about, hey, what's the deal with these flavors? I don't see these flavors around anymore. And their response was like, that's just something that the government says, but we don't listen to the government. We'll still sell you the flavors if you want some. And so they're not really adhering to the laws that the FDA put out. Okay, so why do adults vape? Well, it is cheaper than regular cigarettes. There's different flavor choices. And as adults, we really don't care about the flavors, but it's nice to have them there. It's safe to use, especially indoors. My daughter she's in competitive dance, and we'll go to different uh, venues for dance competitions. And it's very rare that we don't see other parents vaping inside because of quote unquote, it's safer to use inside. And while there is no smoking signs, there are no vaping signs. So they feel that it's safe to use. Um, it doesn't smell, and to be fair, the statistics don't lie that people that are trying to quit smoking, that the vape pens actually do help them quit smoking. However, those numbers aren't so high to justify it. Uh, Now, if you know somebody who's actually quit smoking through vaping, that's great. Unfortunately, that's not. It's rare, more rare than you would hope. And also social image. We, even though we're adults, we still care how we look. We still care uh, what our image is. And so when adults go ahead and see it more as a status symbol, and we're still kids ourselves. We still enjoy doing tricks uh, with the smoke that comes out of our mouth, and it's just part of our adolescence that we never grew out of. And on livescience.com, I did read an article by Sarah Miller, um, and this is just a interesting footnote here where she said, the reasons people use e-cigarettes are shifting. Fewer people are using them to quit smoking, and more people are using them to boost their social image. And that could be just social media altogether. I talk to junior high kids a lot who they place a lot of value on how many likes and how many comments they get on well, not so much on Facebook, but on Instagram and on TikTok. And so that's part of their self-esteem. That's part of their image. And but you know what, guys, us adults, we can't really say anything because we're the same way. You know, when we post something on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, you know, we still enjoy those comments, we enjoy those likes. And so when we post something, it could be our outfit, it could be we could be showing off something, you know, that our kids did, or it could be, you know, somebody, you know, the food they cooked that day. When you get those likes, you know, it feels good. And so when you may post a picture of you doing a trick, you know, with the smoke, then, you know, you can get a lot of likes there, and you can um, post yourself, you know, in a very cool pose uh, while you're vaping. You know, we still get those likes, those endorphins that kick in whenever we have a lot of interaction through social media. It's still something that we enjoy doing. Now, in talking about just regular tobacco and cigarettes, again, I think we've heard it and seen it all about the dangers of smoking cigarettes. And these are just some of the things that are in cigarettes that maybe not a lot of us know about. Um, I'm not going to go through all of them here, but as you can see, it's not as simple as grounding tobacco, putting it in paper, wrapping it up, and then lighting it. There's so much more that goes into uh, tobacco, especially when it's so mass produced. Uh, if you're if that tobacco came from a tobacco farm in Kentucky, well, by the time it gets down here, it's been through factories. It's been through so many hands where they need to put additives in there to keep it fresh. And so using menthol, carbon monoxide, arsenic. Well, whoa, wait a minute. Why are they putting poison in my cigarettes? Well, they're not putting poison in your cigarettes. What's happening is they use arsenic while they're growing the tobacco to keep the insects out of the tobacco. Now, while they do have ways to try to take it out, it's not necessarily 100% uh, void in the tobacco plant. Um, and when it's stored, it it engulfs it just like when you're if you ever go to the landfill, it stinks really bad because of all this. It's compact and it just stays there. Well, that tobacco has to sit somewhere. It's sitting in a factory. It's sitting in a warehouse, and because it's so compact and it's not a pleasant smell, it does turn into methane, which is gas, you know, and it's the example here is sewer gas, but it's very combustible. And while when you just turn on your lighter and it lights up, well, that's the methane that's working. That comes from trash gas, it's sewer gas. So everything that is used as a way to keep the tobacco fresh, an additive, it's not really good for you. And like I don't like to sound like I'm lecturing, but the fact is, it's like, and that could go for anything, but since the topic is tobacco, um, there's all these chemicals that go in there, and it could really hurt you if you really use it for a long period of time. And while it may not 100% cause cancer, it could cause some harm to your body. And now we have the different types of smokers. Chain smoker lights a cigarette when present, when one is still in your mouth, and go through 3 packs a day. Um, that's very expensive. That's a very expensive habit to have. Um, the heavy smoker can go through 2 packs a day. The moderate smoker smokes between 1 to 2 packs a day. The light smoker smokes half a pack a day, and the casual smoker smokes out only when they're in friends, which is basically a social smoker. Um, the majority of the people that I've come into contact with personally are between moderate to casual smokers. I don't think I've ever encountered a chain smoker before, but I do know through mutual people that they are chain smokers. Um, and more than likely, as they get older, the health uh, of that person could quickly deteriorate because of the chemicals that are in cigarettes that are affecting the lungs, affecting the brain, but also anything that is not natural could cause harm if you're using enough. 3 packs a day, that's a lot of additives, that's a lot of chemicals, those are a lot of metals that are going into your body. Now, what are the risks of smoking? Obviously, there's cancer that like I said, not 100% causes cancer, but you are at high risk to cause cancer. Um, you could develop cancer in the neck or head area. Brain cancer is linked to smoking. Obviously, lung cancer, leukemia, stomach cancer, kidney, pancreas, colon cancer, bladder cancer, and cervix. Um, And as more information comes out, we're learning that it's not just the lungs that are affecting us whenever we're smoking. With all the chemicals and additives, um, it develops so many different things throughout the body that people are seeing now. Scientists are seeing now that um, through the lungs goes to the heart, goes to the stomach, and so it's something that we're quickly seeing that whenever cancer does evolve in the body, it could be anywhere. And for those that doesn't cause cancer, well, then there's also chronic diseases that are associated with smoking. Uh, Again, you can cause a stroke where it affects the brain. Blindness was something that I thought was very interesting. It affects the gums, especially if for those who have chewing tobacco. It could affect the gums and the teeth, uh, and aortic rupture, heart disease, pneumonia, hardening of arteries, chronic lung disease and asthma, reduced fertility, and hip fracture. And hip fracture, all it means is it's deteriorating the bones. Um, and if you ever go to a doctor, if you ever go, it could be a checkup, it could be for anything. One of the first questions they ask is, "Do you smoke?" And the reason they ask that is not only because it has anything to do with the lungs, it has everything to do with everything else, the heart, the brain, the teeth, the bones. Um, because as I said earlier, scientists are quickly figuring out that smoking tobacco isn't just a lung and heart problem, it's a problem that could affect the entire body. Right now, this graph just explains the psychology behind smoking. Um, when they're in distress, one of the things they say is, "Well, I'm nervous. I need a smoke. I need a cigarette." Now that goes into patterns where unhealthy patterns where people are using cigarettes as a depressant, whereas just on the chemical makeup of it, cigarettes are not a depressant. What they're a stimulant. They causes the heart rate to go up. Now, when a person smokes to calm down, what their body is wanting to do is to remain regulated by smoking. And so, what that's telling me is when you're not smoking, your body's not normal. Your body isn't adjusting to not having that nicotine in your body. And nicotine is just as addicting than cocaine. It's just as addicting than heroin. Um, and so when your body is not receiving that nicotine, then you're in panic mode. And so you need that nicotine to help you, quote unquote, calm down. But you're not really calming down. You're just wanting to be regulated. It's your body having withdrawal symptom from that. Uh, and when you're on that rate where you need to smoke to calm down, you're pretty much addicted to it. And every person that smokes that I've, mentioned the word addiction to, uh, they're very quick to disavow that and say, well, I'm not addicted. I just like doing it. Or I just, I need it to help me feel better. Well, that's pretty much the definition of being addicted to something. Uh, just like I'm addicted to soda, we're all addicted to caffeine, whether it be coffee or soda, to the point where if we don't have our coffee in the morning, we're in a bad mood. Or if I haven't drank a soda in a while, I might have a headache. So in order to cure that, I drink a soda, run to Sonic, get a drink, and I'm good. Um, and so, and knowing the the how it affects your health, and people continue to chain smoke, again, that's just another way to show that you might have an addiction problem. And again, it's just the cycle that we go through, where you have that urge, where you need a cigarette, or I might feel better if I'm smoking, so you go ahead and smoke a cigarette, and now you're feeling okay. Your nerves have calmed down. You might be, you're not be, may not be as anxious as you were before. So the nicotine goes to your brain and tells you, this is what helps when you're anxious. This is what's going to make you feel good if you're nervous. So that dendrite in your brain has a relationship with nicotine. So now you're viewing nicotine as a coping mechanism. So after a while, after that nicotine high, you come down from it. Well, now I'm feeling anxious again. Now I feel like I need another cigarette. So you resist it, you get more anxious, you feel like you can't concentrate, can't sleep, I'm feeling sick. So now you go back to, I need a cigarette. So as you can see, it's a everlasting circle of smoke. It's a where you feel like you want it, or then the want turns into need. And it's all psychological. It's all about the relationships that the brain creates whenever you have that nicotine high, where it turns from wanting to smoke only when you're with your friends to now you're smoking just to get by. And again, that's a level of addiction that we really don't want to be have a relationship with. All right, so I'm just going, you can just go on your chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and just say it out loud, see what I was able to teach you today. All right, so who invented the e-cigarette? Is it Han Solo? Is it Han Link, Eli Whitney, or Thomas Jefferson? And I have a few B's, so yes, that is correct. Han Link. Lick. All right. Smoking is not addicting. True or false? All right. It is false. Smoking is very addicting. All right. So what part of the e-cigarette is responsible for heating? Is it the mouthpiece? Is it the LED light? Is it the cartridge, or is it the coil? That's right. The coil heats up and turns the liquid into a gas. Okay, which e-cigarette company is currently under investigation by the FTC? Is it the Joule, Camel, Tony Stark Industries, or Vapes Are Us? Yes, Joule. Although it would be cool if Tony Stark made a e-cigarette, I'm sure it would be like crazy, out of this world. tooth decay is not associated with smoking traditional cigarettes. I'm going to give you all a pass on this one because I don't think it went directly to tooth decay. But we did talk about how it could develop gum disease, which ultimately affects the teeth. So I'm going to give you all a pass on that one. All right. So these are some of the resources that through my research that I used, and a lot of them have really good information, really good articles, some statistics, just all around really good information, whether you want to use it for yourself or you may want to pass along to family members or friends, relatives who may have an issue with vaping or smoking. I'm going to give you all time if you want to like screenshot that or take a picture, write it down. But if you have any questions for me, or if you have any questions for Midcoast Family Services altogether, this is my contact information. And the phone number here is a direct number to Midcoast Family Services. And like I said, we have different departments. We are here to service not only Victoria County, but all the other counties as far north as, what is Hallettsville? What county is that? That's not DeWitt, is it?
I think it's Lavaca.
Lavaca, right. So we go as far north as Lavaca, as far south as Calhoun, Jackson County, Goliad County, and everywhere else in between. So like I said, if you have any use or any questions you have for Midcoast, or even if you want some information, and Santa Rosa was the street that is on is our other thrift store. A lot of good finds, books, clothes, knickknacks, paddywhacks, whatever. And so, yeah, so if you have any questions for me right now, I'd be more than happy to answer them or listen to your comments. All right, I'm hearing no comments or questions, so I guess I did a great job. I explained everything great. Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you do have any questions that you don't want to either go on the chat or ask right now, there's my email address. So if you have any questions that you want to direct towards me that maybe I could help you with, or if I could refer you to any of our services, please feel free to email me and I'll be more than happy to help you all out.
Okay, I do see a question. Is vaping better for you than cigs?
Well, yes and no. It's kind of a tricky question. It's good in the sense of that it doesn't produce secondhand smoke that we know of. That information is still fairly new, but vaping, it still contains nicotine, just not as much. However, if you uh, Joule cartridges have as much nicotine as I think 20 cigarettes. So it's one of those deals where, um, like if you go to a health food place and they give you a keto donut or a protein donut, well, it's great if you eat one, but it gives you a false sense of security, thinking, well, it's healthy, so I'm going to eat 5 of them. So it's the same thing with the Joule. While it doesn't have uh, the mindset is it's not hurting anybody because you can't smell it, or I can just take a couple of puffs to last me throughout the day. But if you use a whole cartridge in a day, you basically smoke 20 cigarettes. So it is, but it's not. I'm sure that's not a clear answer, but it is, but it's not. Any other questions?